Today in the Looking Glass, we are going to go to Mongolia. We're going to talk about the spirals of the galaxy and how our original home was not a spiral, but more like a ripple that had a circular center and somehow was turned into a spiral. We're going to talk to the god Anu and some misunderstandings in written history about Anu that may be incorrect. We're going to talk about the giants and individuals with 6 fingers versus 5 fingers, and how our original body had 2 souls, and how we were cut, like Adam was cut from Eve. And this cutting made us ignorant and kind of like in a trap. And Eugene, your grandfather is at 12 o'clock with 2 fish on his head and 1 dead fish over his head. He's holding his hand up like the number 5. There is no hat on his head, just fish. Now let's look at all the hats. At 11 o'clock, there's a man with a pyramid hat. At 1 o'clock, there is you with fire above your head, with the number 6. And maybe 6-0, but the 0 being the center, which is a sun. There is a place that looks like a stadium. In the center is a sun that looks like joy. And it ripples out like a ripple, like circles within a circle within a circle, but it is not a spiral. And then we see the number 4, and then we see a little boy at 5 o'clock. There is a Sirius B dog star that seems to be messing up the original ripple energy of the galaxy. At 6 o'clock, beside the boy, are individuals who are in a hologram. They have dots on their fingers as if they are actors behind a blue screen or in front of a blue screen. And they're looking at holographic images like we are in a simulation. At 7 o'clock, there's the god Hu, and then the god Ki. Hu, O, and then Ki. There is a spear going up, a triangle going down, and a dragon around 8 and 9 o'clock. And yet again, there's another pyramid with a cross on top. And if you look at the forehead of your grandfather and the forehead of the man next to your grandfather, there's a difference between the dead fish and some sort of thing over the man's head at 11 o'clock that looks like a device that was shown on Star Trek. The images within your pieces reveal that our consciousness was hijacked or manipulated, or a natural phenomena happened where our galaxy was infiltrated and shifted its shape from a ripple to a spiral. And this spiral put us under a spell or mind control and kind of changed the clock of time where we went backwards. So something happened where we began to go backwards in time instead of going forward or remaining in the middle of the ripple where time did not go forward or backward. But somehow this spiral that we found ourselves in erased our memory. And this erasing of our memory rendered us powerless to those who know things that we do not know. I will tell you that your grandfather is highly intelligent, even on the spirit realm, and I may not be smart enough to come to the conclusions that we are being shown about our galaxy, our minds, our individual and collective consciousness. But I have come to some answers that I hope will help you connect the dots as to your origins, who you are, and what you need to do to make sure that you don't go backwards yourself and to keep going forward and up. The little boy has 2 triangles on his head. Your grandfather has 2 fish. The man at 11 o'clock has 2 pieces of paper. You are holding 2 candlesticks. but they are cut in half. The little boy has two pyramids that are still together, but the candlesticks are not together. The fish are not together. They are separate. And the pages on the book are together, but like parallel worlds, like a mirror world. One thing your grandfather keeps promoting for you in both pieces is joy. Our original purpose was to experience bliss and joy in the center of the ripple. So it was like there was a sun in the center and it rippled out. And we grew in ripples, not spirals. And so somehow this ripple was manipulated, maybe on purpose, I don't know. Maybe we signed a contract and decided to go into a spiral. But like Dorothy walked the spiral yellow brick road and Alice in Wonderland saw the cat who emitted a spiral. The spiral reflects a kind of a spell or a curse. So here on the second piece is a spiral. It is not a ripple. And your grandfather is protecting you from the spiral when you were a child and from a narcissistic mother energy, protecting you at around 6 o'clock. And he's pointing toward a book. And the book is about Mars and the pyramids of Mars and how your hair, your mind is full of not just one soul, but many souls, because you have thousands of souls coming out of your ear and your hair going into the body of Mars. So they say that you have to ask Jesus into your heart in order to move through the body of Christ. The body of Christ is a fish. And so the fish that's in your piece go back to your culture, the two fish. So to move through the age of Pisces, the two fish, we go to the age of Aquarius. But the two fish has a much more significant meaning to you and your culture. The women used to have two fish in their hair. And these two fish, I believe, reflected the original race of having two souls. When the flood came, they say that human beings, or I don't know if we were humans, but whatever we were, we changed shape and turned into a fish, where Dagon, the fish god, was a fish, and then ate the phallus of Osiris and became a god. So the fish of Mongolia means to rise like fire, shine like the sun and the moon forever, be as sharp and straight as an arrow, as strong as an armor, be as swift as yin and yang, which is the fish, and to march forward in abundance. I would add joy to that, according to your grandfather anyway. So the fish in your grandfather's piece and in your piece is facing west, and a west-facing fish reflects God's return gaze toward mankind. And so this is going to be significant for you because the fish that's facing west is facing a god named Anu. The pair of golden fish forms part of the Ashtamangala, an 8-piece suite of auspicious signs in Buddhism. The double fish is a symbol of good luck. Of course it is, because our original form was two souls, two fish, the age of Pisces, all of that. There are 8 symbols used to represent the qualities of an enlightened mind. Among these symbols is a pair of golden fish. And so if your grandfather has 2 fish, meaning an enlightened mind, and you only have 1 fish, you're being asked to connect with the body of a god that will give you your second fish. So the 2 fish are also connected to the 2 main rivers, and the 2 rivers are about the 2 nostrils breathing in and breathing out. Our consciousness being put into these human bodies in this dual reality. In Hinduism, the god Vishnu is said to have transformed into a fish in order to save the first man from a considerable flood, much like the one that plagued humanity in the Christian story of Noah and the ark. By turning into a fish called Matsya, God granted mankind salvation so they can experience a prosperous and joyous life. According to the old Chinese traditions, vases and other ornaments bearing the twin golden fish are popular presents for young couples and newlyweds. They believed the creatures represents male and female who need each other in order to create life. Yes, the original male and female androgynous being did break apart and create a dual reality, but the two fish originally were about our two souls. So we were spirit, which was immortal, which incarnated into these animalistic bodies, and the fish reflects flesh, fish flesh, and describes the story of man's inevitable destiny to go back to heaven once we are ready to pass on to the age of Aquarius. So the age of Aquarius has two bodies of water. They look like the letter M, and they reflect space and timelessness. Waters below reflect the earth realm. Waters above reflect heaven, heaven and earth coming together. The zodiacal sign of Aquarius is the waterman pouring from an urn the water of life in a double stream. The sacred literature is filled with references in the two waters, or the water of the double source. This is basically a promise that if we make it through the age of Pisces, heaven will come to earth. And Aquarius is allowing us to remember and hear the voice of God and the voice of where we came from, as if the spiral that was descending us backwards in time is finally ascending us and going forward in time. So there's a story of our ancestors being bearers of the flame, and the flame is truth and the way. And this truth speaks about how spirit manifested into matter, or our physical bodies. According to your piece, there seems to be some suggestion that we are in advanced robotic bodies. So a fish is plunged into water and yet does not drown. It can still breathe. And so the spirit of man is plunged or incarnated into flesh, and yet does not become purely animal, being a human, but through esoteric work retains his godhood, so being a piece of God. It's spirit who plunged into the watery chaos of matter, the dual nature of the two fish. According to this symbology, it's saying we died. But your grandfather has one dead fish on his head. And so this means that we may have had three souls, but this life, the purpose of this life was to double ourselves, to go from one fish to two fish, so that we go back to having two souls again, male and female, the original Adam and Eve. So Jesus, the character of Jesus, was the personified symbol of the victory of the soul over matter, the victory of spirit over flesh. And so Jesus said, let us cast our nets and be fishermen of men. And this is becoming a master of the net, the master of the flesh, and hearing the voice of spirit and being able to dominate the flesh with spirit, because spirit is immortal. So we are drawn out of the water, and the vesica piscis is the belly of the whale. We're taken out of the belly of the whale, or the boat, so that Jonah was swallowed by the whale, then spat back out, is that we went through the bottom of the vesica piscis and we go out the top of the vesica piscis like a whale, like a fish. So the characters represent the entire life work of souls that come down into the physical realm together. The host of fallen angels that God, Lord of hosts, gave the boot. So all of the souls in your hair coming out of the fish reflect that we came with a host of others. So we're not alone. You're just a piece of the many souls that came here. And we go into the eye of the needle and we get spit out of the fish back into heaven again. This is why many Christian religions have the fish hat. The fish, when seen on your head is the shape of the vesica piscis, which kind of looks like a pyramid. And the vesica piscis is a portal or a doorway to the gods, and you have many portals and many doorways in your piece. So the boat is the vesica piscis. The vesica piscis is also like a baptism of water, the baptism of fire, and connected to zodiac signs. And it's connected to Noah and the flood and the fish. But your second piece is speaking of getting trapped by a false light and your grandfather saving you from getting trapped into a false paradigm or a false mindset, like narcissism, a lower realm, and wants you to be free and to live in joy. So heaven is the source of living water, and this is the age of Aquarius. Living waters is the agenda now that we've come out of the age of Pisces. Now, in your piece, you have the Eiffel Tower from Paris upside down. This means that we were in an upside down world, like a mirror world, a hologram, or an illusion. Now, the Eiffel Tower is connected to the Lady of Metal, and metal symbolism is associated with humans. Ancient peoples believed that metals held spiritual powers of creation as well as destruction. So when we see a metal train or an Eiffel Tower, this can be good or bad. Certain metals are connected to certain planets. So the study of metal and the study of spirituality go hand in hand. In alchemy, we shift from lead to gold. And there seems to be a communication about the Lady of Metal, with lead being associated with men, that the female was trapped in a false reality of lead. And we had to push through this narcissistic upside down world to find paradise. Now, if you take the word die out of paradise, what you have left is Paris. And so your piece is talking about bringing heaven to earth through Aquarius, bringing our two souls back, and finding paradise removed from the word die, so that we no longer die. And we go to the right side up world, which is Paris. So I found a really neat article about pyramids, because the man with the head that has a pyramid on top of his head that says Mars, this article talks about spirals, the galaxy, Mars, everything. They say that they have always been a pyramid building civilization. And we know pyramids are important because pyramids are on our money and all over the earth and even under the ocean. The pyramids from one angle reflect the number 3. Now, 111 is the number of the sun. The shape of the pyramid makes a tetrahedron. It is connected to the element of fire. There are pyramids on Mars. And so we know that these pyramids have something to do with frequency, electricity, and perhaps even our ability to astral travel. There seems to be a suggestion in your piece that when monks and highly enlightened spiritual people go into a cave, they go into a pyramid so that their consciousness can bounce and go to different planets when we're ready. Using sacred geometry, many of the pyramids appeared to have been aligned with one another or with certain star constellations such as Orion. We 3 kings of Orient are Orion's belt, the 3 stars of Orion's belt, and they always face Sirius B, the dog star. This is what I'm seeing in your first piece, is that dog star messing up a ripple in the galaxy. So this person actually spent quite a bit of time inside a pyramid to get a good vibe about what the pyramids are, what they do, what their purpose is. And there seemed to be some sort of magnetic force and some kind of force which allows our consciousness to hear the voice of God and even astral travel, as if we are in our bodies time machines. But you cannot time travel or spirit travel unless you have 2 fish, which means being born again or rebirthed through an awakening. So here they're talking about the pyramidal structures of Mars. If you go really deep down the rabbit hole, many people say, oh, they already have the technology to basically astral travel or quantum jump from one realm to the other with using our double, our dreaming mind. Our mind cannot be held. It can actually astral travel to many places if you have collected enough power and if you are not polarized into the wrong realm of reality, like following a false light. And sometimes following a false light is because we have a narcissistic parent, which puts us in low self-worth, which also polarizes us into self-importance. And we cannot hear the voice of God because we ourselves in our own mind become a prison for our mind. And that is the agenda of the dark ones, is to keep us imprisoned within our own bodies and mind without the ability to astral travel and remote view and do many great things, because if we did, we would see the truth. And if we saw the truth would set us free. And this is basically what your grandfather is saying with the narcissistic mom yelling at you as a little girl, that he's trying to push you into a golden room called joy and follow his arms up to knowledge and let knowledge set you free and to connect with a new body, which is somehow connected to Mars. Now, they say that Mars is an energy of anger and fire, and I don't know about that. I don't know if I would believe everything that we read, but according to the energy that we connected to with your grandfather and your grandfather's brother and all of that, Mars is a book that can be read that is an energy that will give you downloads on freedom. So our evolution is cyclical or a spiral. It's not linear. We as humans have annihilated ourselves many times, and we keep going back to the center of the spiral. So there's an ancient town known as Ekvin in Asia, and it's one of the greatest archaeological meccas of the north. And this place unlocks truths of our past that will help us all come into balance and not be freaked out by what's happening with this age of Aquarius and by this awakening that we're going through that is both scary and wonderful at the same time. So cyclically, as a spiral, we will all gradually return to a single language. God separated our language, separated us, and we were put through tests and trials and pains and suffering and lies and all kinds of deceit and darkness. And this spiral is no longer going backwards in time. Now it's going forward, and we're going back to our original way, which was one language, one body, one consciousness. So there was highly developed societies in Earth's past. However, our culture declined and fell. According to your reading, it was because the ripple that we were in turned into a spiral. And the spiral kept us in a constant flow of going all the way out and then somehow going all the way back to the center again. We go to ignorance, and then we go back and ascend, and we awaken, we become powerful collective consciousness, being so happy, being so thankful, and then the spiral goes back again to the center where we're ignorant again. And somewhere in our soul, we're kind of getting pissed off about it because the original form wasn't the spiral. It was a ripple, like a stone being thrown into the water, where you bounce from one ripple to the other, not be swept away in a spiral. Now, the swastika is connected to your culture and many cultures all over the world because they are known as the four arms or the four spirals of our galaxy. This swastika is connected to Odin and connected to many things. And so the swastika is not a spiral, but more like a fan. And it pushes us. And the swastika was a symbol of health and love and prosperity and wonderful things. And then somehow someone hijacked the swastika and changed it probably for a dark agenda. But these 4 arms and the number 4 is in your piece. And so what happened was there's these angels of light in the center with the name joy. Then the second spiral, there's an atom with nucleus around it, and it makes memory, like something happened to our memory at that point. And then there's Sirius B, the dog star, who became part of this spiral and turned the puddle, which would be the third one there in the piece. There's the box, there's the spiral, there's the swastika, there's the puddle. And the puddle is the original, it's joy. Now the golden ratio is a spiral. And the spiral, when we first begin as really young souls, we start out really small and then we grow larger and larger and larger. So yes, we are awakening and we're growing. But I think that the agenda is like the treble clef to go out of the spiral and then through an eye, like the eye of a needle. And then once you do that, you bounce to a parallel galaxy that is the appropriate home where we do not die. So instead of paradise, it's Paris. And Paris is a place where you don't die if you take the word die out of Paris. So the swastika is an ancient symbol of the Milky Way galaxy. It is connected to Odin and the 4 arms of Odin. But in the Hindu, Buddhist nations of Asia, the swastika continues to be revered as a sacred and auspicious symbol denoting prosperity, well-being, good fortune. Because it doesn't just represent a symbol. Behind every pleasure and every pain is a sacred geometrical shape. So if the spiral is a spell, that is a curse that awakens and puts us back to sleep, awakens and puts us back to sleep, then the swastika is a place of constant flow that doesn't move. So look at all these symbols of the swastika throughout history and look at all the different spirals that there are in the galaxy and how some galaxy systems reflect the square, the spiral, the puddle, and the swastika, and they are parallel worlds that speak of a reality. Now, worlds are a body of a god. According to King Solomon, who has spoken to us in our readings many times, the swastika and the age of Pisces, the age of Aquarius, is the body of a god. So when we move through the body of that god, we're moving through the mind of that god. That god has an agenda to grow us and balance us through pain and pleasure, through suffering and love. And this dual reaction helps us to balance. Once we have balanced and matured through the body of that God, we are able to ascend to the other body, which is Aquarius. And Aquarius is another God and another new understanding that we grow through in order to go back to our original dual androgynous self, both male and female, with 2 souls, 2 fish, and the 2 bodies of water, heaven and earth, coming together. So the Navajo say that the swastika is a whirling log. So when you look at if you push pause and read this, all different cultures all over the earth have a description for the swastika. It's just for some reason in our Western culture, we're just so... we get the elementary version of everything. Oh, Noah and the boat and the animals go in 2 by 2. When really in Egyptian mythology, the boat is called the Egyptian Book of Gates. They are realms or rooms of understanding that grows our spirit, grows our mind, and helps us to solidify spirit and flesh as one. So you can see the swastika here on this Asian sculpture, and how behind the sculpture are the 3 vesica piscuses. And this vesica piscus is connected to the 7 seeds of life and the flower of life. So there was these people called the Maori, and they saw both the single spiral as well as the double spiral. The single spiral is called koru, and the Mori believed that the circular shape of the koru always conveys the idea of perpetual motion, while the inner coil symbolizes a return to the center, the point of origin. The spiral is called the soul of life. They signify light coming into the world, which is also knowledge and also understanding. So there are positive representations of the spiral, or maybe we have somehow bounced to a spiral that is leading us back to our origins. But according to your grandfather, it was never a spiral, it was a puddle, a ripple. But look at all the sacred geometrical shapes in your piece. The spiral, the triangle, these are the two main pieces of sacred geometry. And then you have the rectangles quite often. Rectangles represent time and space and rooms of understanding. The Egyptian Book of Gates. Now the hands that are in your piece are spiritual hand symbols that have a communication to you as well. According to your piece, you have power in your hand and your hair. And these dots are somehow connected to spiritual beings made of light. And the light that's within you can come out of your hands and your hair. So there were once androgynous creator gods. They were giants. They were the original Adam and Eve before Eve was cut from Adam. So there was a place called the Eden of the world. And through the cutting of Adam and Eve, we became semi-divine, self-imprisoned into these physical bodies, where we were once androgynous. It's kind of like the story Ariel. If the mermaid Ariel was androgynous and wanted to experience having 2 legs, 2 fish, and to be in love with herself, then she signed a contract with the Wicked Witch, and this contract trapped her in a reality that wasn't what she thought it was. She thought it was. So the androgynous ones, they often say, drink my blood and live forever, like the vampires do. Mithra and Jesus were one of them. And there are stories of how we were made out of clay by the gods, like we are highly advanced robots. And they put a SIM card, which is in your piece, looks like a square, in our forehead, and it's like nanotechnology. And so somehow consciousness is able to bounce into it like the movie Avatar. But our original form was 6 fingers, 6 toes, androgynous, both male and female. This is why the Statue of Liberty looks male and female and has the crown of Mithra and wears a dress where you cannot see whether this person is male or female, because the original race of who we were both male and female, and somehow we found some way to put ourselves into separate bodies with 2 legs, where originally we were fish, like a little mermaid. So I know it gets crazy, but this fish goes back to you and goes back to your grandfather, a story of how we came from a very different perspective as to who we are and who we were. The androgynous ones have always existed and always will exist because they live forever. The original Adam and Eve are in the garden. They don't ever die. Seems as if they are the ones looking at us through a holographic table, and they are known as the giants. So there are statues called the 2-headed statues. And in your second piece, the man that's writing the word Anu on a piece of paper has a female on the back of his head, as if one part of him is male and the other part is female on the back of the head. 2 souls in one, 2 energies as one. So the book that the man is opening with the word Mars on it has 2 faces of the pyramid, and the book is open to 2 pages. But the pyramid is one pyramid and the book is one book that can be broken into 2 pieces. And this is the symbol of the 2 fish. And so I also wanted you to encourage you to get into activating your hand chakra, because you have a power in your hands that put lights or emits light or electricity out of your hands. So I've never really gotten into hand activation as far as a conventional way of someone telling me how to do it. I've always done things with my hands, with water, with visualizations, with perfumes and oils, and just kind of, playing around. But you can actually look at how to awaken certain abilities within your energetic field, but especially your hands. So your grandfather wants you to seek the energy of sacred geometry and energize yourself. Let go of your past. Don't get pulled or swayed into a world that is someone else's mind, because the entire universe is made up of mind. So if you believe and agree with some jerks from your childhood, then you will be in their world. But if you want to be in your grandfather's world, which is what he wants, you need to focus on studying and seeking first joy and all the fruits of joy, which is really studying about how to become powerful and knowledgeable and sharing this knowledge and power with others and living with passion and joy. The idea of going back to being androgynous beings, both male and female, kind of sounds, I don't know, I'm not sure I would like it, but I'm not sure if that's what we're supposed to do. But let's learn about Anu. Anu is associated with these pyramids, if you look at the picture there, and the spirals of the galaxy, as Anu is the god of the sky. Now, your name begins Anu Jin. And you had a Jin in your piece at 5 o'clock in your first piece. So the Jin are energies that manipulated our genes. And this is why the Bible starts with Genesis and Gentile. So something did happen to our DNA where our cells are prison cells for our soul from the Jinn. So you have Anu Jinn, and it is connected to the sky god and the spirals and the pyramids. And the Anu Jinn is, or was, a body of time. They were not human. Anytime you read about a god and they tell you they had a wife and a child, no, they were male and female. If they spoke of a child, it was a galaxy or a body of time, like a room or an understanding. So Anu briefly appears in the Epic of Gilgamesh. The bull of heaven is associated with Mithra from Armenia. And Mithra was cut, male from female, and the bull turned into the moon and the other half turned into the sun. So the sun and the moon are a reflection that we were cut, that our souls were cut. So this Anu is connected to Enlil, El, and Enki, the original gods or the Anunnaki. And Anu is connected to the number 60. If you look at a spiral, it looks like a 6 or a 9, with a 0 being the very center of the spiral. So the number 60 is referring to not just the sky, but the spiral of the galaxy. So if your original world didn't look like the number 60, it was just a puddle with a circle in the center and then a larger circle outside and then a larger circle outside, that doesn't make the number 60. Somehow our world was changed from that ripple to a spiral, which turned to the number 60. And this is where 369 is so important in our reality. I believe that the reason that this information came to you is because of your name as being very important to your culture and to the world, that you are the embodiment of what happened to the human race. That we went from a Garden of Eden that was like a ripple in the waters of living waters, which was swept into something that was like a hurricane known as Sirius B, the dog star. And the ripple was sucked into a spiral, and the spiral made us go backwards in time, and we lost our memory. Now it's starting to go back forward again, where heaven is coming back to earth with the age of Aquarius and the two fish, our original form, and we are going to go through an awakening, and we are being asked to focus on joy only at this time so that our minds do not get hijacked by narcissism or by energies that want to keep us trapped in a false paradigm, almost like a hologram. And this is Anu, a picture of Anu with a beard. And so the bearded energy comes into your piece. And the beard is simply the box, the black box of Saturn. It emits a plasma that causes a Santa Claus looking being to appear that is bearded. So when you see Zeus, Jesus, Odin, and Solomon and Anu, all these gods having beards, they are all descriptions of bodies of galaxies and star systems. It's funny how they talk about Anu's wife having a name and they had children, when they also say that Anu was androgynous with 6 fingers and a giant and was both male and female. How can you be androgynous who self-impregnates and have a wife, right? Jesus's mother self-impregnated. To be born of a virgin like Jesus or Mithra is a direct communication that they came from the original Adam and Eve that were not cut, who still live in the garden. So yes, they come from the gods. So the name An or Anu actually means mother who gave birth to heaven and earth. So heaven being good, earth being bad, I guess. Heaven being knowledgeable, earth being not knowledgeable. Heaven being order, earth being chaos. So let's just do a recap here. Notice all the symbols of the head. Notice the ripple with the name joy in the center and the number 4. Notice that there's a possibility that we live in a hologram and that we are in a place of growing our souls back to remembrance. And once we get to a certain size spiritually and we connect with God and our true and the way and the truth, then we get to bring heaven to earth, which is your name. Anu, heaven to earth. The candlesticks, I'm not really sure what they mean, but the candlesticks are associated with the number 6, and there's a 0 in the center that is a sun. And this may have something to do with the original shape of the Garden of Eden, which is more like a sun in the center that ripples out instead of being a spiral. But notice how the fish look like the shape of a ripple, a curved shape also. Now at 7 o'clock, there's a triangle going down with a dragon eating it. This reflects a descent or a fall. And we fell. And being eaten by the dragon is the Draco star system, but it also in alchemy reflects that we fell from the gods. And the dragon reflecting that we fell from our original form. Some people say that our original form is like a dragon, but with a bird's face. And we could fly and we could do many things. And Puff the Magic Dragon and many dragon symbols are a reflection of the original form, which laid eggs. And the androgynous dragon that laid eggs, and the egg being in the center of the spiral. Now this letter T, if you pushed pause, there was some connection to your grandfather talking about these letter T's in your culture, where his arms make these walls. But these walls are connected to the Egyptian Book of Gates. And he actually has a flag from Mongolia at 11 o'clock. And this flag comes from the 1920s. So there's something about that that I'm not exactly sure what he's saying. So you have a lot of studying to do. I did what I thought would be a good start for you. There's just so much in your piece that I swear I think you could take months if you wanted to, and be like Sherlock Holmes and investigate exactly what your grandfather and your grandfather's brother and Anu and all these other individuals in your piece are saying to you. I'm very curious about what Mars has to do with all this, but according to your reading, Mars has an energy or a body of a god that leads to freedom. And that is what your grandfather is saying too. And I will consider it and think about it a little while, because I'm not really sure what to think about that, because everywhere you look, there's contradicting information out there. It's like we have to learn how to astral travel ourselves and go see it ourselves, right? Thank you so much for everything that you have to teach us about the origin of our consciousness and how we are finally ascending and bringing heaven to earth if we can focus on joy. Good job on where you are and where you're going, and keep going and don't give up and don't look back. If you would like a reading, go to forestfairy.com.